rumor this week, of course, that Kansas is going to join the Big Ten. So you can either take that as a serious comment, meaning basketball, or as a tongue-in-cheek comment concerning football, Tony. But Kansas to the Big Ten, how relevant, valid is that rumor?
If I found the source of the rumor, it was somebody saying it's more likely than it was. Now, it may be more likely than not happening by 1%. But if the Big Ten adds Kansas, first of all, the only way I would be okay or not angry if the Big Ten adds Kansas is if they've added 5 teams from the Pac-12 and they just need a 6th for 20, or they've been able to grab Duke and North Carolina and somehow they go ahead and throw Kansas in there for some basketball stuff. But basketball has nothing to do with any of this, and if they're making a basketball decision, somebody needs to go. And so, no, the Big Ten would be dragged so bad. The SEC goes and gets Texas and Oklahoma. What does the Big Ten do? They go and get Kansas. And you would hear like sad trombone. You'd hear crickets. You'd hear laughter, a lot of laughter. No, it's not happening. And if it does, they better be part of a package deal with 5 other blue bloods.
Yeah, I was going to say no interest in Kansas. You've got a basketball program that's on an FBI investigation. You've got a football program that should be under NC2A investigation for ineptitude. No. I mean, as Tony said, if they're the 6th team and you go and you get 5 teams that move the needle, okay, it's all well and good, I guess, there, but they offer nothing in terms of financials. They don't open any territories. It's just not a good situation. No interest at all. But at least it's better than something I read online yesterday. Again, just some random tweet out there trying to attach Kansas State to the mix. So we're going to get a lot of stuff thrown to the wall. Little to none will actually stick to it, because at this point, I'm not exactly sure what Kevin Warren is doing in terms of looking at expansion. I mean, it sounds like this might be something that the TV networks are driving a little bit more to do some due diligence there. There certainly have been the stories out there that Jim Delaney may be advising, the same Jim Delaney that brought us Rutgers and Maryland, but then he also did bring us Penn State and Nebraska. So, I'll say it's a wash or whatever. But I don't think the Big Ten needs to expand for the sake of expansion, especially if all of the schools are going to get less than their media rights deals. I mean, it's about an arms race and keeping up in the money. If you can't bring in $70 million on your own, everybody's going to get a smaller piece of the pie. So, again, Kansas, no. Hell no.
Yeah, I'm going to echo those sentiments. To me, this is all about adding schools that will bring you increased value. And the only one out there that really would do that, that's even close to this footprint, is Notre Dame, obviously, as everybody knows, and they really relish their independence. And you'd have to make some major concessions, perhaps, in their direction to allow that. I mean, years ago, I talked about bringing Notre Dame into the Big Ten and said, let them keep their NBC contract for their home games, because in turn, when the Big Ten teams go to South Bend and play, those games are played on national television. I mean, it's great exposure for the Big Ten. I mean, I don't see what the sticking point is. So in like last year, the ACC sent their teams to South Bend and their games were played on NBC. And it's been great exposure for those ACC teams. So I don't see the downside in that, provided that the money, equals out, that they are not making, let's say, $40 million more than you are every year and have this huge war chest of money to throw at whatever to beat you over the head with, because this is an arms race first and foremost. I mean, you guys have heard me use this example. Indiana ain't winning that college football playoff. I've always said that. Now here they are, a freaking top 10 team all of a sudden. But I can't use Indiana in that. Okay, Purdue ain't winning no college football playoff because they don't spend the money. Notre Dame's got the money. And again, I'm getting completely twisted around on this. Back on Kansas, I got on Wikipedia last night. Kansas, there are 3 million people living in the state of Kansas. It borders Nebraska. That's the only Big Ten state, to my knowledge, that it borders, because it's bordered on the east by Missouri, which is not a Big Ten state unless you count, St. Louis, 3 hours, 4 hours away. That is quasi-Illinois. So, and even that's questionable because Illinois is clear over on the eastern part of the state of Illinois. But at any rate, I don't see Kansas as I consider them a non-entity. You've heard me use that term with so many of these schools and states. West Virginia, 2.5 million people. 20 TV homes. It doesn't give you anything. You can't charge. You make nothing up on the back end with increased Big Ten network revenue, which is what Rutgers was about, which was what Maryland was about. You got into 40 million homes at a premium price, and you made it back on the back end with the Big Ten network. We don't know it because we're not privy to all the numbers, but believe me, Gene Smith is smiling every day because of Rutgers and Maryland. That it's been a windfall for the conference in terms of money. In terms of forward facing and what you see on television and competitiveness, no. It's been a disaster and a mess with the football at both those schools. And Kansas is certainly even worse than those two schools in football. Basketball is pennies on the dollar compared to what football is about. There was debate. I saw the NCAA came out with something about they get $1 billion a year for their men's thing, and then the other sports are sent to ESPN for something like $50 to $100 million. The other 23 sports, and how many thousand hours of college baseball and college World Series and softball World Series did we get this spring on ESPN, plus 63 women's basketball games and everything else? Like, you've completely undervalued the rest of your package. And my thought is, maybe you really, I don't know, they draw what, 1 million people maybe watching some of those games or whatever. So football is where it's at. Football, is in that relationship is kind of where it's at, same as the men's basketball tournament to the women and the baseball and everything else. It's dollars, and Kansas brings no dollars. There is some impetus, maybe a Pac-12 partnership of some sort, and we are connected. I mean, you can fly direct now to the West Coast for maybe 5 hours. I mean, it's you spend a whole day commuting to get out there, and God, are they going to send like a basketball team out there to play 2 or 3 teams on a West Coast swing or something? If they were to do that, I'd hate to see that. I just don't see where that really gains you a whole lot. I don't think people back here really care to watch Ohio State play Oregon or USC or UCLA in a lot of these sports. So I don't know. It just whatever. We're going into a new frontier here, and I don't think bigger is necessarily better unless it pays you more money. So
everything you guys said made total sense, except I don't think you factored in Yakov 22. Once that Nebraska-Kansas rivalry game is put together on Thanksgiving weekend, I think that tips the scales. I think that makes it all worthwhile.
That shoves it over the edge for me, bud.
Yakov has been a great friend of many live show channels or whatever, but about the Big 8, I'm sorry.
I don't think people in Kansas watched that game because it was typically 76-0 during about the 3 decades that I watched college football before Nebraska moved. All right, good stuff right there.
Go
to it, Steve.
One more thought, Kev, our good friend Dan Wallenberg, who's been the sports information director for basketball at Ohio State for much of the last 20 years, he came from Kansas State, and Ohio State with Scooney Penn and Michael Redd was going out to Kansas. And this was in 2000. And I said, Dan, I'm so excited. I'm going to go out to Kansas, and I'm going to follow Scooney and Michael, and we're going to go out and watch that game when Ohio State plays Kansas. Said, I've never been to Fog Island Field. I was so excited about it. Dan Wallenberg, who obviously had a little bit of a grudge because he was coming from their rival at Kansas State, he said, that place is a dump. And they're 20 years down the road. So you think it's probably as big a dump now as it was then? I don't know. So I don't know. I just had to throw that in there, that their one big claim to fame is rock, chalk, Jayhawk, and cheating at basketball and everything else that they've done. And it's a dump to the rest of the world. So, whatever.
Gary Lewis is thanking me for segments that I have no idea what he's talking about. Having Nevada Buck on your show. Gary, you might be getting me confused with somebody else. I don't know, but we do cover the Pac-12 here, so I didn't know that Nevada was involved with the Pac-12, or maybe I missed something there. Maybe somebody's got a nickname I'm unaware of, but I counted 117 guests one year, so it's possible I had somebody on here and it's completely left my brain. That is possible. Never these three, though. That's not going to happen. One last thing on the expansion realignment front, and I think Kevin debunked this last week in regards to the connection to ACC schools, even those that are impressive and qualify academically, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia, namely. There's like a contract in play until 2036, I believe that. So the ACC route is pretty much dead, correct?
Yeah, unless say Florida State and Clemson leave and everything just folds, then there's nobody to pay that money to. But yeah, like you can't go grab a team.
Right. Yeah. You would have to basically drive a stake through the ACC and not leave enough programs there to be able to enforce. And of course, I think in terms of their grant of rights, they have some legal wrangling there that even if there's one team left, that they should be able to go and try and get the damages or whatnot. So, that's not to say that it's impossible. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma aren't supposed to be able to go to the SEC before 25 or whatnot. And I honestly would not be shocked to see them playing in the SEC in 22, 23 at the latest. So, never underestimate what lawyers and deep pockets and things like that can accomplish. But prying a select couple of teams out of the ACC may prove to be extremely challenging.
And it just doesn't seem like something that the Big Ten would do. And with all the conference realignment over the past couple decades, it really hasn't been done by anybody. Oklahoma, Texas approached the SEC. This is the biggest, at least on the face of it, poaching act. But the SEC did not initiate this, as is understood across the board. So, all right, very good. It's always great to have these guys. Kevin, where can we find you?
I'm at BuckeyeGrove.com. You can get me on Twitter at Kevin_Noon, and you can find all of my live content over on Buckeye Grove Video on YouTube.
Steve.
Bucknuts.com, 24/7 Sports Network, and at Steve Hellwagon on Twitter. And just excited to be able to get out in the fresh air this morning and see the lads. The helmets were just gleaming in the air today, or in the bright sunlight today, and fresh air and green grass. And it was exciting to be back with football, and hopefully no interruptions for 2021. Hopefully we have a solid season coming ahead.
Tony.
Yeah, find me at BuckeyeScoop.com. Podcast is Buckeye Weekly Podcast. We're going about 4 times a week right now because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. You can find me on Twitter at Tony Gerdeman.